Okay. So you just gotta read, you just gotta, like I said, feel free to make lots of notes, make lots of highlights, things like that. So we have standalone codes. So CPT codes are always 5 digits and they're all numerical. Okay, there's no letters. You've got some temporary codes and you've got some experimental codes and stuff like that. Those have letters, but those, when I say CPT, that 99% of them are not those temporary codes and stuff, okay? We've just got 5-digit numerical codes. So you have ones that just stand alone. Let me find an example and we're just going to flip to it, okay? Okay, go to code 23500 here in the front. It's in numerical, excluding the first. Evaluation management is out of numerical order, but there's a reason for that. What did I say? 93500. Keep going past those 9s. 235. I wrote down 935. I'm sorry. I'm digesting my quarter pounder and I'm sorry, that was my fault. 23500. Okay. 23500 is a standalone code. 23500. Closed treatment of clavicular fracture, semicolon, without manipulation. Does everyone see that? Mm-hmm. Closed treatment of clavicular, of course I picked a hard word to say, fracture, semicolon, without manipulation. Stands alone. You see the code beneath it, 23505, it says with manipulation and it's indented. Okay, what that's doing is it's replacing everything in this past the semicolon in the code above it. Let me say that again. So, 23500 is the closed treatment of clavicular fracture without manipulation. Code 23505 is the closed treatment of a clavicular fracture with manipulation. Make sense? Okay. So that semicolon is your stopping point. That indented code replaces the text from above it. Okay?
Yeah, like replacing this.
That's right. So one of those codes is without manipulation, meaning they didn't have to put that oogs me out so bad that they have to do that to my shoulder. Bone stuff is gross. Okay, so
Only you.
I know it hurt. Okay, but one's without manipulation, one's with manipulation. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what you want to watch for. Most of them are pretty straightforward like this, but once you get into stuff like bronchoscopies, it can get kind of hairy. Okay, let's see. So that makes sense. All right. So like I said, we're going to kind of walk through the sections real quick. This is what we did. These are services and procedures. These have a dollar amount attached to them. So what the provider does is they have a list of all the CPT codes that they charge, and they have a fee schedule, which means for 23500, we charge $275. Okay, not going to really get into insurance stuff. That's a whole other conversation. Okay, what they charge is not what they get paid. You know, you owe part of it, and they have to write off stuff, all kinds of other junk. But so they have code 23500. It's $275. Okay, the biller goes, hey,
I'm stepping out. Have a good afternoon.
Okay.
See y'all later.
okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
She's famous now. She's on film. Okay. So you start in the back, you go to the front, right? All right. Here we go. Okay. Modifiers are 2-digit codes that basically indicate that a description of a 5-digit code, a regular code, has been altered or requires more specificity. All right. So I'm gonna translate that into English now, okay? You can find a cheat sheet for modifiers under the front cover of your book. You can find longer descriptions in Appendix A, which is in the middle of your book, basically. But I'm just going to look right now here at the front cover of my book because they're all right. They're right there too. Okay. So when I say it means that the description of the code has been altered, it means that what we did doesn't quite match what the description of the code says we did. So for example, remember, painting this picture for my payers, right? Okay. So for example, I have, here's one that is used all the time, 59 modifier, okay? 59 modifier says distinct procedural service. So one important thing to remember about CPT codes is the concept of bundling and surgical packages, meaning what is all included? Because remember, this is stuff we're doing, right? So we want to remember that some things are bundled together into one service. So for example, if you cut your arm and you go in to go get stitches, there's not a code for getting stitches and then just taking stitches out. It's the code for stitches. It's all bundled together. You don't get charged again for taking the stitches out, unless there's complications and they got to do something else, okay? When there is a woman has like a normal pregnancy, there's usually just like one code. If the same doctor does everything and delivers the baby, there's really just like one code for that. You'd think there'd be 50, okay? But they've got different codes of, say, if I have my care here, but then a different OB, or if I move, or something like that. Surgery, major surgeries are bundled. There's bundled services. There's usually like a 90-day period where all services are bundled in. So my follow-up visits, you know, getting staples removed, all that kind of stuff is bundled into one code, okay? We use modifiers like 59 to say it was a distinct procedural service to tell a payer, hey, this wasn't bundled, okay? An example is, so say if I have chest pain and I go to the ED, right? Okay, they're going to do an EKG. Yeah, they're going to do one, all right? They're going to do that probably before they even sign you in. Right? Okay, so they're going to do an EKG. So say I go in and I get an EKG, right? And then later on, we'll say I go in at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? They do an EKG, everything looks, okay. They're going to watch my enzymes, they're going to do all this junk, right? Okay. Then they'll say, in the morning, we're going to do a stress test, okay? So then they do a stress test, and then maybe like 3 hours later, they do another EKG, right? So for part of my services is I've got an EKG, I've got a stress test, and I've got an EKG, right? Okay? All of those were done at different times for different reasons, right? Well, you have chest pain, but you see what I'm saying, okay? They did one here, they did the stress test here because they can't do it in the middle of the night, probably because there's nobody there to do it, right? Okay, so they do it in the morning, and then they do another EKG, and then they send me home, right? So that claim is going to have those codes on there, but Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to come back and go, oh no, we think that EKG was part of the stress test, we're not going to pay for it. We're going to bundle that EKG into the stress test. And I can slap that 59 modifier on it, and that's saying no. Those were distinct. Does that sort of kind of make sense? Those were distinct. You should pay me for all three of those things. Okay? So how that would look, and I'm completely making up these codes. Okay, so say I had an EKG, right? I had a stress test, and then I had another EKG, right? Okay? What you're gonna do is you're gonna put those on these two bottom ones. So here's my first service, this was distinct from that, and so is this was distinct from that. These are all distinct. Yeah, because I don't need it on the first one because I just don't. Okay, the first one kind of stands alone. I'm like, hey, this wasn't part of this.
Kind of like the primary.
Kind of, yeah. And usually, in terms of sequencing CPT codes, usually it's by cost. Okay, and the reason behind that is because like Medicare will have funky rules that say, hey, we'll pay you 100% of the allowable for the first thing you charge, but we'll pay you 75% of the allowable for the second thing you charge, and we'll pay you 50% of the allowable for the third thing that you charge. So I want to make sure the most expensive one is first, so I can maximize my reimbursement.